Answer this honestly. How many times this week have you thought, if only I had started earlier, or I've wasted too much time, it's too late now? If that thought has crossed your mind even once, what you're about to hear will completely shatter that belief. Because I'm going to tell you about a moment in Napoleon Hill's life that nobody talks about. A moment when everything he had built collapsed. A moment when most people would have given up, retreated, accepted defeat. He was 55 years old, broke, divorced, professionally humiliated. His reputation was in ruins. The book he had spent 20 years researching hadn't been published yet. He had no income, no prospects, and no reason to believe things would get better. By every measure society uses to judge success, Napoleon Hill at 55 was a failure. And yet, that year became the turning point. The year everything changed. Not because circumstances improved, but because Hill made a decision that would transform not just his life, but the lives of millions of people he would never meet. Here's what makes this even more powerful. Hill didn't become a millionaire at 55. He didn't achieve financial success at 55. Something far more significant happened. At 55, Napoleon Hill went blind. Not physically, but mentally. He lost the ability to see his circumstances as permanent. He lost the ability to believe his past defined his future. He lost the voice in his head that said it's too late. And in that blindness to limitation, he finally saw clearly what he needed to do. The result? At 56, Think and Grow Rich was published. At 60, he was recognized as one of the most influential success teachers in America. At 70, he was still writing, teaching, transforming lives. At 87, he died having impacted over 100 million people worldwide. All of it started at 55, in what looked like complete failure. So, if you think you're too old, if you think you've missed your chance, if you think your best years are behind you, stay with me for the next 15 minutes. Because what happened to Napoleon Hill at 55 will prove that your greatest chapter might be just beginning. Before we go deeper, I need you to do something. Comment right now. 55 is not the end, it's the beginning. Write it. Declare it. Because what you're about to learn will challenge everything you've been told about age, timing, and second chances. Hit like, subscribe, and let's discover how Napoleon Hill's biggest failure became his greatest transformation. The year was 1930. The Great Depression had just begun, and America was in chaos. Napoleon Hill had been working on his success research for over 20 years, ever since Andrew Carnegie commissioned him back in 1908. He had interviewed over 500 of the most successful people in the country: Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, John D. Rockefeller, Alexander Graham Bell. He had notebooks filled with principles, strategies, and insights. He had enough material for 10 books. But here's the problem. He hadn't published anything significant. Nothing. After 2 decades of work, he had no book, no legacy, no proof that any of it mattered. Why? Because Hill kept waiting. Waiting for the perfect time. Waiting for the perfect publisher. Waiting for the perfect circumstances. He kept refining his research, gathering more data, delaying the actual work of writing and publishing. Meanwhile, his personal life was crumbling. His first marriage had ended in divorce. His relationship with his 3 sons was strained and distant. He had taken various jobs just to pay the bills. Sales positions, consulting gigs, nothing stable, nothing that matched the vision he had for himself. And he was getting older. The boundless energy of his 20s and 30s was gone. The optimism of his 40s was fading. At 55, Napoleon Hill looked at his life and saw nothing but waste. 20 years of research with nothing to show for it. A failed marriage, distant children, no financial security, no legacy, nothing. Then something happened that Hill later described as my dark night of the soul. He received a letter from a publisher who had previously shown interest in his work. Hill had been hoping, praying even, that this publisher would finally say yes, but the letter was a rejection, a final rejection, and worse, it contained a sentence that crushed him. The publisher wrote, "Mr. Hill, your research is interesting, but frankly, it's not practical. These are principles for exceptional people, not ordinary people. And ordinary people are the ones who buy books. I don't see a market for what you're trying to teach. I wish you the best, but we will not be moving forward." Hill read that letter 3 times. Each time the words cut deeper. Not practical, no market, not moving forward. Something inside him broke that day. But it wasn't his spirit that broke. It was his illusion. The illusion that someone else would validate his work. The illusion that circumstances would magically align. The illusion that he could keep waiting for permission to do what he already knew he needed to do. He realized, sitting there at his kitchen table with that rejection letter in his hand, that he had wasted 20 years waiting for someone to tell him he was good enough. Waiting for someone to give him permission. Waiting for the perfect moment. And the perfect moment never came. It never would. That night, Napoleon Hill did something he had never done before. He wrote a letter to himself. Not from himself now, but from his future self. He imagined himself at age 75, looking back at this exact moment at age 55. And he wrote what that future version of himself would say. The letter read, "The moment you stopped waiting and started acting was the moment everything changed. You didn't need more research. You didn't need more time. You didn't need approval from publishers or validation from anyone. You needed to commit. You needed to burn the ships and remove every option except success. At 55, you finally did that. And it changed everything. Not just for you, but for millions of people you would never meet." Hill kept that letter. It was discovered in his personal belongings after he died in 1970. And on the envelope, he had written in large, bold letters, "The day I went blind to limitations and finally saw the truth." What was the truth Hill finally saw at 55? That age is irrelevant. That past failures are irrelevant. That other people's opinions are irrelevant. The only things that matter are these 2 questions. Do you have something valuable to contribute to the world? And are you willing to commit everything to making that contribution? Hill knew the answer to the first question. Yes. He had 20 years of research. He had insights from the greatest achievers in history. He had principles that actually worked, principles he had tested and seen transform lives. But he had been treating it all like a hobby, something he worked on when circumstances allowed, something he would get to eventually. At 55, broken and desperate, Hill made a different decision. This wasn't a hobby anymore. This was his mission, his purpose, his reason for existing, and he was going to complete it regardless of circumstances, regardless of opinions, regardless of obstacles. He was going to finish this book even if he had to self-publish it, even if he had to give it away for free, even if nobody ever read it. He was going to complete what he started 20 years ago, and he was going to do it now. Not next year, not when circumstances improved. Now. The Stoics understood this principle deeply. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and philosopher, wrote in his private journal, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." He was reminding himself daily that time is limited, that waiting is foolish, that the only moment you truly have is this one, right now. Seneca, another Stoic philosopher, wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. Life is long if you know how to use it." Hill had wasted 20 years waiting for permission. At 55, he finally stopped waiting and started living with urgency. Epictetus, the Stoic slave who became a great teacher, asked a question that haunted Hill during this time. How long are you going to wait before you demand the best for yourself and live according to reason? That question burned in Hill's mind. How long was he going to wait? He was already 55. If he waited another 5 years, he would be 60. Another 10 years, 65. At what point would he finally do what he knew in his soul he needed to do? The answer became crystal clear. Now, not tomorrow, not next month, not when he felt more ready. Now. So Napoleon Hill made a series of radical decisions that shocked everyone who knew him. First, he decided to write the book himself, without waiting for any publisher. He would write it exactly as he believed it should be written. No compromises, no watering down, no concern for what was marketable. He would write the truth as he understood it. Second, he decided that if no publisher would take it, he would self-publish. He would find a way to get this book into people's hands, even if he had to print and distribute it himself. Even if he had to go door to door selling it. Third, and this is the most important decision, he decided to live as if the book's success was already guaranteed. He started introducing himself differently. Not as someone working on a book, not as an aspiring author, but as Napoleon Hill, author of the principles that create wealth and success. Present tense, done deal. This wasn't delusion or positive thinking fluff. This was faith applied in the most practical way possible. Hill remembered something Andrew Carnegie had told him 25 years earlier during their first meeting. Carnegie had said, "The people who truly succeed in this world are the ones who burn their ships." Do you know what that means, young man? It means they remove every option except success. They commit so completely, so totally, that failure isn't even a possibility in their minds. They don't have backup plans. They don't hedge their bets. They go all in. At 55, Napoleon Hill finally understood what Carnegie meant. He burned his ships. He stopped keeping backup plans. He stopped telling himself he could always go back to consulting if the book didn't work out. He committed everything, his time, his energy, his remaining money, his reputation, everything, to one single mission. Complete this book and get it published. What happened next was extraordinary. Within 1 year, Hill had completed the full manuscript of Think and Grow Rich. Within 2 years, he had found a publisher willing to take a chance on it. Within 3 years of that dark night at age 55, the book had sold over 1 million copies. Within 5 years, Napoleon Hill was internationally recognized as one of the foremost authorities on success and achievement. His name was known around the world. But here's what people completely miss about this story. The success didn't happen because Hill suddenly became smarter at 55. It didn't happen because he discovered some new research or some secret principle. It happened because he finally stopped waiting and started acting with complete, unwavering commitment. He finally applied the very principles he had been researching and teaching to others for 20 years. Definiteness of purpose, burning desire, applied faith, organized planning, persistence, decision, all of it. He had studied these principles. He had taught them. But he had never fully applied them to his own life with such intensity. At 55, facing what looked like total failure, he finally practiced what he preached, and everything changed. There's a deeper lesson here that applies to every single person listening, regardless of your age. Your past does not define your future unless you allow it to. Hill at 55 could have looked back and said, "I've wasted 20 years. I'm a failure. It's over. I'm too old." Nobody wants to hear from a 55-year-old man with nothing to show for his life. Many people in his position would have said exactly that. Society would have understood. His friends would have sympathized. But Hill made a radically different choice. He reframed everything. He said, "Those 20 years weren't wasted. They were preparation. I needed that time to gather the research. I needed that time to test the principles with real people. I needed that time to understand the depth and power of what I was discovering. I wasn't ready before. Now I'm ready. Now I begin." That reframing changed everything. Your struggles, your delays, your failures, your setbacks, they are not waste unless you choose to see them as waste. They are preparation if you choose to see them as preparation. Think about your own life right now. How old are you? What have you been delaying? What dream or mission or purpose have you been putting off, waiting for the right time, the right circumstances, the right feeling? Hill's story proves that it's not too late. It's never too late. But it does require a decision. A clear, firm, non-negotiable decision. The decision to stop waiting and start acting with complete commitment. The decision to burn the ships and remove every option except the one that matters. The decision to live and act as if your purpose is already accomplished and you're simply walking out the remaining steps. Here's what Napoleon Hill did practically at age 55 that you can do today, right now, regardless of your age. First, he wrote down his definite major purpose in one clear, specific sentence. He wrote, "My purpose is to complete and publish the success principles I have discovered, so that millions of people can apply them to achieve their goals and create better lives." Not vague, not someday, clear and definite. Second, he set a firm deadline. The manuscript would be complete within 1 year. Not when I feel ready. Not when circumstances are better. 1 year, non-negotiable. Third, he created a daily routine that served only that purpose. Every single morning, before doing anything else, he wrote for 4 hours. No exceptions, no excuses. Didn't matter how he felt. Didn't matter what else was happening. 4 hours of writing every morning, period. Fourth, he ruthlessly eliminated everything that didn't serve his purpose. He stopped taking consulting jobs that paid well but distracted him from his mission. He stopped spending time with people who doubted him or discouraged him. He became ruthless, absolutely ruthless, about protecting his time and energy for the one thing that mattered. Fifth, he practiced autosuggestion every single day. Every morning when he woke up and every night before sleep, he read his purpose statement out loud with emotion and total conviction. He said, "I am Napoleon Hill. I am completing the most important book on success ever written. This book will transform millions of lives and create a lasting legacy. I am an author. I am successful. This is done. He repeated this until his subconscious mind fully accepted it as truth. Sixth, he acted as if success was already guaranteed. He introduced himself as an author, not an aspiring author. He talked about the book in present and future tense, never in wishful or doubtful terms. He made every decision from the identity of a successful author who had already achieved his goal. These weren't tricks. These weren't positive thinking gimmicks. These were the direct, practical application of the principles he had spent 20 years studying. And at 55, he finally applied them with full intensity, with absolute commitment, with everything he had. The results speak for themselves. Think and Grow Rich has now sold over 100 million copies worldwide. It has been translated into dozens of languages. It has influenced presidents, business leaders, entrepreneurs, and everyday people for nearly 90 years. It is still one of the best-selling books of all time. All of that, all of it, exists because a broke, divorced, discouraged 55-year-old man decided to stop waiting and start acting. But here's what moves me most about Hill's story. Years later, in his writings and interviews, he reflected on that turning point at age 55. He wrote something profound. He said, "If I had published this book at age 35, it would have been good. At 45, it would have been better. But at 56, it was exactly what it needed to be. And here's why. Because I had lived long enough to truly understand the principles at a deep level. I had failed enough times to know with certainty what doesn't work. I had struggled enough to write with genuine compassion and understanding for people facing real obstacles. The book needed my age. It needed my experience. It needed my scars and wounds and hard-won wisdom. Youth couldn't have written this book. Only age and struggle could have written it the way it needed to be written. That insight reveals the secret advantage of starting later in life. You bring depth, wisdom, perspective, and hard-earned understanding that youth simply cannot provide. Your delays weren't wasted time. They were seasoning. They were the fire that refined you. They were the experiences that give your contribution real weight and authenticity. Hill understood this completely, and it freed him from all regret. He stopped wishing he had started earlier and became deeply grateful that he was starting now, at 55, with everything he had learned and lived. Look at history. Marcus Aurelius became emperor of Rome at age 40 and wrote his greatest philosophical work, Meditations, in his 50s and 60s, while simultaneously leading an empire and fighting wars on multiple fronts. He needed that age, that experience, that perspective to write with such profound wisdom. Seneca wrote his most powerful and moving letters in his 60s, just years before his death. He needed a full lifetime of experience, success, failure, and reflection to write with such clarity about how to truly live. The Stoics understood something modern culture has forgotten. Wisdom comes with age, struggle, and deep reflection. Youth has energy and potential, yes, but it lacks depth. Age has depth. And if you maintain purpose and commitment, you still have tremendous energy. So here's my direct question to you right now. What are you waiting for? What is your version of Think and Grow Rich? What contribution could you make? What impact could you have if you stopped waiting for perfect circumstances and started acting with total commitment today? You might be 45, you might be 55, 65, or even 75. Your specific age is completely irrelevant. What matters, the only thing that truly matters, is this. Do you have something valuable to offer the world? And are you willing to commit everything you have to offering it? If your answer to both questions is yes, then your age means nothing. Your past means nothing. Other people's opinions mean nothing. The only thing that matters is your decision to begin right now, today, this moment. Napoleon Hill proved beyond any doubt that 55 can be a beginning, not an ending. He proved that what looks like complete failure can actually be the setup for your greatest success. He proved that it is never, ever too late if you have purpose and you have commitment. Now it's your turn. What is your definite major purpose? Write it down today, right now. Stop this video if you need to and write it down. Make it clear. Make it specific. Then set a real deadline, not someday, a specific date. Then create a daily routine that serves that purpose. Then eliminate everything that doesn't serve it. Then use auto-suggestion every morning and night. Then act as if success is already guaranteed. Do exactly what Hill did. Apply the same principles he discovered and proved. Not someday when you feel ready. Today, right now. Because the world genuinely needs what you have to offer. The world doesn't care how old you are. It only cares whether you're committed enough to actually deliver it. So make your decision. Comment "Today I begin." Like this video. Subscribe to the channel. And make the commitment right now, in this moment, that your past ends today and your future begins. Napoleon Hill changed everything at 55. You can change everything today, whatever your age happens to be. The obstacle isn't your age. The obstacle is your decision to let age be an obstacle. Remove that obstacle from your mind, and suddenly everything becomes possible. Your greatest chapter is waiting. It's time to write it. Let's go.